Virginia smoke. OVS, Old Virginia smoke. OVS, Old Virginia smoke. OVS, Old Virginia smoke. Old Virginia.
My name is Luke Darnell, Pitmaster of Old Virginia Smoke Barbecue, and I'm here to tell you about my new online class available at barbecuechamps.com. This is a 100% tell-all competition barbecue class from yours truly, available online. It is a masterclass with 34 high-definition tell-all online competition barbecue videos that can be watched anytime, and they do not expire. They are packed full of pro tips, techniques, and recipes that will show you how to take your barbecue to the next level. These 34 barbecue cooking videos total 7 hours and will show you everything that you need to take your competition cooking to a level that you never thought was possible. We've already heard from several teams that have bought our classes and have already seen success and gotten their first calls. So this is something that brings me a lot of joy in sharing my knowledge and seeing people be successful with it. So are you ready to take your competition and backyard cooking to the next level? What are you waiting for? Just go ahead and go to barbecuechamps.com and find Luke Darnell, Old Virginia Smoke. We hope you learn a lot and enjoy these videos and have as much fun cooking these recipes as we had making them. This podcast is brought to you by barbecuedata.com. Barbecuedata.com is your one-stop shop for all of your barbecue competition data. Historical data, calls, wins, placements, everything under one roof. It's a great way not only to track yourself in the standings, but also to track how you improve your scores from year to year. Listeners of this podcast can receive 20% off of a new subscription to barbecuedata.com with the code PITPOD. That's one word, all capital letters, PITPOD, PITPOD. So check your team scores, check on others, and do it all on barbecuedata.com. Welcome to another edition of Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. My name is Luke Darnell, your host, and we got a little something different for you this week. And we're going to take a stroll down memory lane, and B, we're going to talk about the future. But this week, it's my pleasure to bring to the stage an old friend of mine, Mr. Mike McCloud, head of the World Food Championships. How are you doing, brother?
Luke, if I was any better, I'd be twins, or I might have more hair. One or the other. But I'm really, really well, really good, and it's so good to see you and catch up with you. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. It's funny. We were talking before we went live, and you're like, "Wow, you don't have a lot of hair, and you're a little gray there." I was like, "Yeah, I actually saw a picture from the 2016 World Food Championships where my beard was all the way brown. So that's a huge change."
I think mine was probably less salt and pepper back then too. Of course, the chrome dome was still there. I think I was sporting that haircut way back then. So, but here's the good news: once you get used to it, you're gonna love it. It's so much less maintenance. There's no telling how much money I've saved not buying hairspray over the years, and I don't even think I own a comb. I know I don't. I have one for my son, but not for me.
Well, let's first of all, congratulations on this event and its longevity. It is really actually been blossoming recently, and expanding of the categories has been really good for the event, and including vegetarian and live fire, I think is a really great move. That honestly, the night that I won the Barbecue World Championship in 2016 is one of my fondest memories ever of competing. It was just such a one, it wasn't expected, and two, it was something that will always hold tremendous meaning for me. If you look in my background there, you can see the trophy is right there, and and it's like what Kim calls it, it's like the Holy Grail in Indiana Jones. It's kind of hidden amongst all the rest of the muck in there, but yeah, I remember that night like it was yesterday, and just being there and surrounded by all of those great chefs. It truly is it's an experience.
Well, first of all, congratulations again. You're one of the barbecue elite, having done all the other things that you've accomplished, but going to the World Food Championships where it's a tournament of champions and trying to navigate our process under all that pressure and all the glitz and glamour that goes with WFC is quite an accomplishment. And I remember that night very well too, because you like a few other fellas I know, hoisted upon me one of the toughest moments in barbecue, which is when I see a big burly man cry. It always kind of pulls at my heartstrings, and I know it was an emotional moment for you. I think it was kind of a surprise even to some of us behind the scenes, and but great times. Orange Beach, Alabama was a very special chapter in our lives, and to your point earlier, we certainly have grown quite a bit since then. We've changed a lot since then, but that was a pivotal time frame for us, and I felt like we were just starting to get our sea legs in 2016, 2017, 2018, and it prepared us for the tremendous growth that we're experiencing right now. And there's a lot to that we can unpack as we talk. But fond memories, and would love to see you back in action. I don't know if you're still competing a whole lot, or if you're just a celebrity now. So you have to tell me if you ever want to come out and do it again.
I would love to come out and do it again. We actually have been competing quite a bit. This year we've qualified for the Jack Daniels World Championship here in a couple of weeks. So life has been pretty much occupied by that at this point. But speaking of change, you guys have moved to Indianapolis, Indiana. The event is going to be held November 8th through the 12th. And barbecue has changed a lot in this format too since I won. Yeah. What can you tell me about how to qualify and what the system's like now?
So let's start with some 30,000 foot view. I think when you won, we had 9 categories, and now we have 12 plus 1. We have 12 food verticals, and we have a mixology championship that we have just given birth to last year, and this will be the second year. We're still kind of in beta mode with that. Eventually, we think it'll be a mature component to WFC, or it'll break away as a mature component. But yeah, we have 12 categories now. Our prize purse, sorry to steal any thunder from you, but it's much larger now. We award over $400,000 through the main event and the final table. I think probably the biggest change as it relates to the WFC that you recall and that you were successful in is that our final table now is not only separated from the main event. It doesn't happen on the last day after we crown champions. We've moved it to another time of the year, into the spring, so that we take 4 or 5 months off and we get prepared for a whole nother culinary gauntlet. And then the process of the final table changes too. So it's not like you can, as a barbecue champion, you can just stroll in there and have the most beautiful looking rack of ribs and beat everybody to death with that. You have to actually compete in what we call a localized competition to the location that we're at, and there's 3 challenges there. So to become the world food champion now, you have to win at least 6 times, and in barbecue it's a little bit more, because as you well know, barbecue has more categorical infighting, if you will, with ribs, brisket, chicken, and then other things as you move through our system. But we love what we've developed. I call it the culinary gauntlet. We always envisioned our version of culinary competition to be a Super Bowl of food, and it had to live up to that moniker. It has to be tough, right? So lots and lots of changes. one of the entryway changes now is our big relationship with Famous Dave's. We just completed our second season with them, qualifying teams into World Food Championships. They've won at one of 13 or 14 locations and events that we held in parking lots at Famous Dave's. We still have teams that can get to us outside of the Famous Dave's program because of grandfathered relationships. But by far, that's the big way to get in right now. You go to a Famous Dave's, you're one of about 6, 7, 8 teams. You have a good shot of winning, but you still have to compete against great teams. And then we have a big finale using the Famous Dave's process at World Food Championships, which I'd be happy to discuss further.
Yeah, tell me more, man. I remember I'm really excited about what you've created in terms of all of the challenges. I still remember after I won the barbecue portion just being terrified because, I'm going up against,
a chef.
Some of like James Aptekin. I mean,
oh, wow. Yeah.
That guy, he and I have remained friends. That's the other thing about this, which we'll touch on later. But I remember him coming up to me and, telling me about this cheese he was having flown in from Italy for the final table and how much it cost and what's got to be at a certain temperature. And he's like, "What are you doing special?" I was like, "Well, I've got a $10 rack of ribs from Walmart. I bought 10 of them and I'm going to pick the best one." So that's really cool. Tell me more about the Famous Dave's process.
So first of all, I want to touch on what you just pointed out. At the end of the day, quality ingredients matter, right? Having great meat, having great ingredients, whether it's flown in or if it's from a local farm or whatever, all of that really matters to the flavor profile and the dish that someone's creating. But there's nothing like the ability to compete and to execute whatever it is that you dream up in our system. And I think that's where our championship really has moved the needle. As you may recall, we introduced the EAT methodology, execution, appearance, and taste. And we decided that barbecue included, everything needed to be broken out of the box and it needs to be provided on a platter so that people can see the beautiful food. As all of us know, you eat with your eyes first. So that really changed the game for us versus other competitions. Not to knock other sanctioning bodies or other processes that are required in other successful events, but at our event, you don't have to guess at what flavor profile is going to be hot or going to be trending or going to be prominent because of where you are geographically. What you have to do is you have to tell our judges what flavor profile you're using and what the title of your dish is, and then describe it just like you would looking at a menu going into a restaurant. And then that creates a contract between you and the judges so that the judges have something to benchmark you against. And I think anybody who kind of goes through our system, they may not do as well as they want to the first year, but they learn a tremendous amount from our system. And I think they become fans of that process because, imagine if you're really good at making chipotle, raspberry, whiskey ribs, right? First of all, that just sounds amazing. But to be able to pick up on chipotle and raspberry and whiskey with ribs that are perfectly smoked and tender and juicy, as a judge, I have something to really reward you with, right? Or by the same token, I have something to judge against you for because I don't taste the honey or I don't taste the whiskey, right? Because you didn't execute that well. So that's the big thing to keep in mind about WFC is that we want you as a competitor to tell the judges, what is it you're making? And then our judges, using a blind process, using a master judge process, and then using a live panel process, the only event that I know of that does this, Luke, we can discern how well you executed your dish. If it tastes great, if those flavors went well together, or if that was a miss because you tried to put too much in it. If you executed the meat, it was tender and juicy and tugged off the bone just right in the case of ribs. We have something that's a little bit more objectifiable instead of subjective. And I think that's really important when it comes to our judging. So those are the key things. But another big difference between 2016 and now is, like I said, when you go to the final, if you're the barbecue champion representing that vertical, you now walk into a pristine industrial kitchen, and you hear from us what the challenge is. It might be biscuits and gravy. It might be some kind of French dish, or it might be a local cuisine using fresh vegetables and collard greens or something. And what we're trying to determine as we reward $150,000 on top of the 10 grand that you've won is who's the best cook, who is going to be able to navigate not only their vertical at the main event, but the new horizontal challenges that exist at the final table. And all of this is part and parcel to us getting prepared for primetime TV. We are under development with one of the major networks, trying to get food sport on the permanent map and on the tongues of foodies throughout America and hopefully the world, and really finally create that American Idol of food dream and vision that we had when we first started. We've been on cable a blue million times. We've been a backdrop to a lot of other shows. We've had talent plucked from our contest and taken into other shows that exist and are owned by the networks. But we now finally have our own development and network deal that can put World Food Championships and all of our contestants front and center. And part of us moving to Indianapolis was bringing that to life and doing it in a community that knows how to develop major platforms for sport. Indianapolis is a place where people are familiar with racing and basketball and lots of other things, football. Shout out to Peyton Manning as a Tennessee guy. But they basically refer to it as where champions are crowned. And so as every 3 or 4 years, we kind of look around and determine, is it time for us to now move, which is sometimes contrary to what a business person usually wants to do, which is to make it perfectly efficient, right? You stay in the same place all the time. But we've learned that our champions like traveling, and they like seeing new communities and new destinations, especially foodie destinations. So after being in Dallas for about 5 years and surviving the pandemic and coming out of that pretty strong and marching to growth again and getting a TV deal pulled together, and then going through a merger. You may not know that we basically partnered up with IMG, another well-known sporting platform development company. They own or are sister companies with WWE, PBR, UFC, Barrett Jackson. I mean, there's all these great sister companies now that we're affiliated with. And Indianapolis is one of the hot new cities that's launching a lot of these new platforms and welcoming them. So for us, it was a natural move. We get the feel of an Orange Beach because it's really truly a community-based city, but we also get the big city media that we enjoyed in Dallas because Indy's a major market. So hopefully it's the best of both worlds, and we'll be able to deliver for sports fans in the state of Indiana, a whole new layer and opportunity to see culinarians be as good as any football athlete or any basketball athlete that or race car athlete that you follow.
I'll tell you, you've got my blood pumping a little.
I'm just trying to get you back.
I was that 8 years ago. I wouldn't have stood a chance in a kitchen like that. I've developed some skills. I've developed some chops in those 8 years. And you got me excited, buddy. I mean,
well, I'm glad to hear that because, some of the best barbecue guys out there are all around great cooks, right? They're not just a one-trick pony. And that's why we kind of changed that process at WFC. We didn't want to always be trying to see what category is going to beat out dessert or what category is going to beat out barbecue. We wanted to test the cooking prowess of our 12 champions. And we've done that now 3 times in Bentonville, Arkansas. And, there's strategic advantage to doing it in Bentonville because of Walmart and Sam's Club, one of our great partners as well. And they love seeing what we're doing. And they are big time supporters of WFC and food champs. We now put a lot of food champs, as you probably have seen, into retail demonstrations. And you can literally almost like have a franchise in a particular part of the country that you live in. If you're near 2 or 3 Sam's Clubs, 2 or 3 Walmarts, we can make contracts now with our food champs and basically help them create a significant second income, if not a primary income, if they want to really apply themselves. So that's a whole nother layer of development that's come out of WFC in the last 8 years. We really have this massive retail activation arm, and we're constantly working with brands that, and of course, every brand in the world ladders up somehow to Sam's or Walmart in the food space. So we're able to work with amazing brands and do elevated samplings for customers of Walmart and members of Sam's Club to let them kind of see the difference between a local celebrity chef and just cooking at home, and give them ideas and get them motivated about cooking at home and making more fresh dishes instead of always buying processed food. So a lot of it is our spokes of the wheel that we hadn't envisioned in 2012 when we started this, but it's now become a critical component to what we do. And I think one of the next developments, which we talk about on a regular basis now, is developing our own CPG line, having our own products that come out of the WFC, whether it's through some kind of competition realm or some kind of development opportunity with big food companies and Walmart. And hopefully one day you'll see that on a shelf, and who knows, it might have Luke Darnell's image on the front of it.
I mean, that's incredible how you've grown that. And I've seen it through the one part of WFC that I want to talk about, which is the camaraderie and the community that not only, I mean, and we've always had that in barbecue, right? And that's what everybody's standby saying is the barbecue family. The night that I won, I was welcomed into a community of chefs that I never, ever thought that I would be involved in. And I'm still friends with so many of those people today: Liz Kratz, Carrie Luke, James Aptekin, Stephen Cohen, all of these guys I still stay in touch with. And, sitting around that bonfire in Orange Beach and just sitting there and listening and learning, that was probably the biggest benefit of all of being a part of that. And it really changed me, and it really reinforced that that's what I wanted to do, wanted to cook. And that was, and it's good to see that that the organization is helping the winners and helping the participants and push them into places where they probably wouldn't have gone before. And I think that's great.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's like you became a member of a class in high school or college, right? You develop this circle of friends who competed that year, and then you get to see them annually if you go back, or you just stay in touch with them over the years. And you just reminded me of a critical example that displays, I think, the beautiful side of competition food, which is the camaraderie. Everybody wants to win, but everybody also wishes their fellow competitors a good experience too. And I remember James Aftigan, you mentioned him. He was our seafood champion that year. We were shooting a seafood show with, I think, Food Network. And he and two or three other competitors, their names might come to me as I go through this story. They were competing, and one of them lost a pivotal ingredient, and it happened to be a lime or a lemon, and it had rolled off the front of their competitor stand, and they couldn't see it, and they were freaking out. We, as the organizer and the TV crew, weren't allowed to help. James Aftigan realized what was missing. He had extra ingredients, and he offered those extra ingredients so that his fellow competitor could finish their dish. And I think that's something you just don't normally see. And in other sports,
it's not surprising from that guy. He's he's pretty amazing.
He's a true champion. Yeah. I mean, he if he was going to win, he wanted to win fair and square, and he wanted to win against the best. He didn't want to win just because someone else made a mistake. He wanted to win because he excelled. And that to me was just one of the many, many examples that I have seen in this journey of how special individuals like you and your colleagues are in this industry. And, you know, the language, as our good buddy Chris Sherrill once said, this is a language of love, right? Food and feeding people is a love language, and you can't help but love people and want to help people and see people happy when you do this for a living. So that was a perfect, beautiful example of that love language coming out in James.
That's right. He's also the first person to ever call me chef. He called me chef in that exchange that we had, and I looked at him. I was like, "Dude, don't." I was like, I burn meat in the parking lot. He goes, "You're here with the rest of us, man. You're chef from now on."
It's special to hear that. People call me that as well from time to time, and it sometimes just doesn't feel right. But I accept it because it's part of the community. And every now and then I will fire up a grill. In fact, I was firing up a grill last night with our friends at Weber, and it was a lot of fun to actually put tongs in your hand and check the temperature of the charcoal and that kind of stuff.
Most people probably don't know that about you, but that's what you used to do. You used to get it done. You probably still do.
Yeah. Well, I'm a backyarder. I would be in the backyard Joe section of any competition, but it's something that all of us need to learn a little bit about for sure. Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you just from my perspective for everything that you've done for food sport, and basically giving everybody their flowers and putting them on a pedestal and really elevating a lot of us. And I speak for a lot of people that have participated that it's a life changer. It's a life-changing experience, and it's one that I'll never forget. And I wanted to encourage everybody to go check out worldfoodchampionships.com, check out what they've got in store for Indianapolis. Is there anything else you'd like to point people to, Mike?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I've just been very fortunate to have a great team along the way. a lot of people plug in and then plug out of what we do because I couldn't afford to keep them. They were so good at what they did, they had to go find a better job or a higher paying job, not a better job. But thank you, and know that we're going to keep doing this. We got a long way to run. We got bigger, better things coming down the pike. We have WFC Junior that we're kicking off in a big way this year. I hope people
That's
come out
incredible, dude.
and check that out. We have a Battle of the Branches. We're getting big time into military stuff too. So just a lot of moving and expansion and growth opportunity. If you haven't been to WFC in a while, I encourage you to come back, see us in Indianapolis, because you're gonna remember why you love it in the first place.
All right, great, Mike. Thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure seeing you, my friend.
Thank you for listening to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like the podcast, rate the podcast, and to share it out with your friends. Also, be sure to check out the Old Virginia Smoke TikTok as well. Old Virginia Smoke, one word. That's all you have to search for. It's hilarious. Tune in next week for another great episode of Pitmaster. For companies interested in advertising, please contact Old Virginia Smoke directly via www.oldvirginiasmoke.com. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is edited by Chris Sedanka. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is a property of Old Virginia Smoke, LLC.
Old Virginia Smoke. Old Virginia, Old Virginia Smoke. Oh, yeah. Old Virginia Smoke.